On my birthday, my sister took my seat at the table while my mom said, "Let her have her moment, you've had enough." I didn't argue. That night, I closed my door for the last time. Weeks later, as they blew out her candles again, their phones buzzed with 96 missed calls, and a message they never saw coming. I didn't think asking to celebrate my 25th birthday at my parents' house would turn into the start of something irreversible. I just missed the way things used to be, my aunts laughing in the kitchen, my uncle sitting on the porch pretending he hated being there, and everyone yelling over each other like some dysfunctional sitcom. I even offered to pay for everything. The food, decorations, drinks, cake, all of it. Just wanted one night where I wasn't the one holding everything together in silence. It was my idea. My invitation. My party. But when I walked in, the first thing I noticed was that my sister, Emma, had taken the seat I always sat in. The seat everyone just knew was mine, even if no one said it out loud. I glanced around, thinking maybe it was a joke. She was already holding court, smiling like she owned the night. People were looking at her like she was the guest of honor. When I asked about it, not even in a confrontational way, my mom didn't even look up from her phone. She just muttered, "Let her have her moment, you've had enough." That phrase hit harder than I expected. You've had enough. I don't even know what she meant by that. I'd been the one paying their electric bills for the last 3 years. I'm the one who helped Emma cover her rent when she decided to follow her dreams and quit her job with no plan. I've never even once asked for anything in return. I thought maybe this night was the one night it wouldn't cost me something. Dinner was awkward from the start. My girlfriend, Lisa, tried to keep things light. She made small talk with Emma, even complimented her on her dress. Emma smirked and told her it was from the new designer line she got. Thanks to being the favorite child. Some people laughed. Lisa didn't. It only got worse. Emma started going on about this new project she'd gotten involved in, vague startup talk, something about being a creative director, which anyone who knew her knew was just code for unemployed with an Instagram account. She kept throwing digs at me, saying how some people try to buy happiness but can't find it, how others get it naturally. Every time she spoke, someone would chuckle. I wasn't sure if they were laughing at me or just uncomfortable. Either way, it didn't matter. Then came the cake. I had ordered it myself, chocolate, layered, just like I liked it. When they brought it out, Emma actually stood up and clapped her hands like a child. My mom told me to let her blow out the candles, just for fun. Said it was a tradition now, because she brings the energy. I didn't argue. I didn't say a word. I stood up, walked upstairs, and closed the door to my old room. For the last time. Lisa followed a few minutes later. She didn't ask questions. She just grabbed her bag and took my hand, and we walked out. As we drove away, my phone lit up with messages. Some people were confused. Some angry. Some just disappointed. Not in me, in them. In what they'd seen. And in what they hadn't done. That night I didn't sleep. Lisa stayed over. We talked until morning, and by the end of it, something in me had shifted. Not just disappointment, resolve. Quiet, sharp resolve. What they didn't know was that I'd been the one paying Emma's rent all this time. $6,000 so far. Her landlord didn't even have her number. Just mine. And the rent for August was due in a few weeks. I didn't forget that. And neither would she. After we drove off that night, I didn't say much. Neither did Lisa. There was nothing to say. The silence in the car felt clearer than anything I'd heard that whole evening. No one reached out for 2 days. Not Emma. Not my parents. No one. Then, midweek, a text from my mom popped up like nothing had happened. "Hope you're okay, love you." A red heart emoji at the end like it was a casual check-in and not a follow-up to the most humiliating night I've had in years. I stared at it for a while, put my phone down, and never answered. But it was the people I didn't expect who made me realize I hadn't imagined it. And Rosa called. She said she'd never seen anything so twisted, that Emma was acting like she was starring in some personal reality show while the rest of us were props. Jared, my cousin who barely talks to anyone, called to say I had every right to walk out and that he thought about doing the same when Emma made that crack about me buying happiness. Even Uncle Pete, who never chooses sides, said he left early out of disgust. Apparently, after Lisa and I walked out, there was this weird shift in the room. Like people finally noticed the elephant that had been tap dancing on the table for years. But Emma? Radio silence. Instead, she posted photos from the party, all of them centered around her. Captioned one of them, "Energy attracts energy." And another, "Your success is someone else's threat." The level of delusion was so high I couldn't even laugh. Then came the part I'd been waiting for. August 1st. Emma's landlord texted me like clockwork. "You sending this month's payment?" He always talked to me. Never Emma. She had no contact with him because the lease, like everything else in her life, was being handled behind the scenes. I replied, "Not this time. She's on her own." He asked if I was sure. I told him I was done. No more rent. No more cover. No more brotherly generosity. He said he'd inform her. I said good luck. An hour later, Emma texted me. One line. No punctuation. No greeting. Just, "What did you do?" I didn't reply. Then came the missed calls. First her. Then my mom. Then my dad. All in a row. I ignored every single one. Lisa and I went out for burgers that night. I didn't even bring my phone. The next day, Lisa showed me Emma's story. Her apartment, empty. Boxes piled against the wall. Caption, "Starting over. Again." I almost felt something. Almost. But it was the fallout that got interesting. By Thursday, Aunt Rosa messaged me again. Apparently, Emma had been evicted. The landlord gave her a couple of days to get out. Word spread fast. And when people started asking what happened, the cracks started to show. My cousin Zoe texted me, "Did you really pay her rent this whole time?" I said, "Yeah. $6,000 in total." She said, "She told everyone she had a contract job in design." I said, "She doesn't even own a laptop." And that was the first real unraveling. People started to connect the dots, that Emma had been living in a fantasy, and we'd all been told to pretend it was real. My dad called again the night Emma moved back into their house. I let it go to voicemail. He said something that stuck with me. Said, "You know she's not strong like you are." Like that explained everything. Like I was supposed to keep carrying everyone because I could. That week, more relatives reached out. People who had never said a word before. They told me about things I didn't even know, how my parents bragged about Emma's career, but always got weirdly vague when asked specifics. How Emma borrowed money from Aunt Rosa last year and never paid it back. How my mom once told someone that I didn't mind helping because I was well off. It was becoming obvious. The mask was slipping. And Emma knew it. She didn't text me again. But she posted less. Her captions were quieter now, less confident. It was like she felt the air changing. And I was still calm. Still quiet. Because the truth was only beginning to surface. And I was done protecting anyone from it. The week Emma moved back into my parents' house, things went strangely quiet again. Not in the peaceful way, more like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. I didn't do anything. Not yet. That was the part that made them nervous. Emma didn't text me again, but she updated her social media bio to something like Consulting Creative Strategist. Whatever that means. It was the digital version of a smoke bomb. Just vague enough to make people stop asking questions. But the questions kept coming. By then, most of the family already knew I'd been paying her rent. They knew she'd been evicted. And they knew she had lied about her so-called projects. The part that shook them the most wasn't even the lie. It was how long she'd kept it up, and how much my parents had helped cover it. I got a call from my Aunt Linda. She never calls unless someone's in the hospital or dead. She asked me flat out why I hadn't said anything sooner. Why I kept it going. I told her the truth. I thought I was helping someone who just needed time to figure things out. But every time I gave her a soft landing, she treated it like a trampoline. Then she told me something I didn't know. A few months back, Emma told their side of the family she'd been offered a creative director job in LA. She had a going-away dinner. They even bought her gifts. Then she just didn't go. Said the company ghosted her. She never had an offer. I checked. She never even applied. That blew the lid off everything. People started confronting my parents. Asking why they let her live like this. Why they let her steal attention, money, and now, sympathy. And when people didn't get answers, they turned to me. So, I gave them the one thing no one expected: silence. I didn't explain myself. I didn't go on a rant. I let the facts speak. She was evicted. She lied. I stopped paying. And my parents enabled all of it. That's all anyone needed to know. But then, something happened that even I didn't plan. Lisa's parents invited us over for dinner. They'd heard about the party from Lisa. I expected a normal meal. Instead, her dad told me I reminded him of himself, that he'd spent years supporting people who made him feel guilty for doing well. Then he asked a question no one had ever asked me directly before. Why are you still paying for your parents' credit card? I blinked. Because I always had. Since I got my first real job. Since their mortgage fell behind that 1 year and I stepped in and covered the gap. Because they needed it. Then he said, yeah, but what about you? Don't you? That sat in my head for days. I'd always thought helping them was just part of the deal. Like if I didn't, everything would fall apart. But I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe they'd just gotten used to it. 2 days later, I checked the statement. They had charged nearly $1,200 last month. Spa visits. Takeout. Random Amazon stuff. My mom had bought a standing mirror that cost almost $400. For what? I looked at that number, closed the page, and did something I should have done a long time ago. I canceled the card. Didn't tell them. Didn't give them a heads up. Just closed it. That same day, I opened a new account for myself and transferred all my savings there. Every cent. I wasn't going to let them access anything else. That night, my dad called again. I let it ring out. Voicemail again. Still no apology. Still pretending none of it was happening. But they were about to find out exactly what it meant to burn the one bridge they had left. Because the next event wasn't mine, it was Emma's. And this time, I wouldn't be there to walk out. I'd already walked away. Emma's birthday landed on a humid Saturday. I didn't acknowledge it. No message. No gift. Not even a passing thought. At least not one I'd admit out loud. But I knew the party was happening. I pictured the same group from mine, pretending like everything hadn't just imploded 2 weeks earlier. I wondered if they reused the decorations. Same banner, different name. Lisa and I spent the day out of town. We'd driven 2 hours to this small lake we liked, stayed at a quiet Airbnb, and turned our phones on silent. No noise, no guilt, no pretending. Until that night. It was close to 10 when I finally checked my phone. 46 missed calls. Lisa had even more. They weren't just from Emma or my parents. There were calls from uncles, aunts, even cousins who never usually texted unless someone was pregnant or dying. I didn't answer any of them. I already knew what they were calling about. Earlier that day, right before we'd driven out, I scheduled a message. It was a single link, sent to a private group thread that included most of the family. No subject, no warning. Just a clean, quiet link. That link led to a page I built myself. Nothing flashy. No commentary. Just the facts. First was a timeline of every rent payment I'd made for Emma, receipts, screenshots of the Zelle transactions, and email confirmations from her landlord. $6,072 total. All paid by me. Then came a few saved texts from Emma thanking me, saying she'd repay when things took off, and how she didn't want Mom and Dad to know she was behind. But the real shock was the audio clip. A phone call from last year, where Emma was bragging to a friend about a made-up job offer. I'd recorded it accidentally. She was on speaker while I was driving with Jared in the passenger seat. She was talking about branding deals and client portfolios, when we both knew she was between gigs and selling used clothes on Depop. At the time, it was just background noise. But Jared had turned to me and said, "She lying?" I said, "Yeah. She always is." Now that audio was out in the open, for everyone to hear. And I didn't send it out of pettiness. I sent it because they made a public show out of humiliating me. They wanted to crown her in my place, laugh at my expense, and smile while doing it. So now, I gave them a show of my own. From what Lisa's cousin told us later, the reaction was immediate. They were about to light the candles on Emma's cake when the phones buzzed all at once. At first, people thought it was an Amber Alert. But then they saw the same link, clicked it, and the room shifted. Emma asked what was going on. My dad told everyone to put their phones away. My mom kept saying don't overreact, he's just upset. But the damage was already rolling through the room. Aunt Rosa said she left before the cake was even cut. Jared walked out laughing. Uncle Pete confronted Emma right there, asked if anything about her new job was even real. She didn't answer. But the thing that blew everything wide open was something I hadn't even planned. The website had analytics. I could see who clicked, who watched, who scrolled. And about 20 minutes after the party ended, someone using my dad's email logged into my old credit card portal. That's how I found out they'd used my name to cover their rent. Not once. For 4 months. Nearly $4,000. I'd cut off the card after the birthday fiasco. But apparently they still had the old info saved on food delivery apps and used it to pay utilities, groceries, and rent. The card was supposed to be for emergencies only. Years ago, I'd given them access after my dad got laid off. I forgot about it. They didn't. They drained it in silence and pretended nothing happened. I called the bank the next morning. Told them I'd never authorized those charges. Shut the account down. Filed the report. Froze my credit and moved every remaining dollar into a new, lockdown account. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. The message was coming. That night, after everything had exploded, I sent one final text to the group chat. Everyone was still awake, still reeling. All I wrote was, "You let her blow out my candles. Now watch what happens when I blow out the lights. I'm not your foundation. I'm not your fallback. This was never love, it was convenience. I'm done pretending. Don't call. I've already forgiven you. But I don't owe you anything else." No one replied. That was the real silence I'd been waiting for. After the message, I didn't expect silence to last. I figured someone would snap, try to guilt-trip me again, or throw some last-ditch plea for family unity. But days passed, and no one said a word. Not my parents. Not Emma. Not anyone. It was like the house of cards had finally collapsed, and everyone inside it was too afraid to move. Until the first real consequence hit. Aunt Linda called me one morning, clearly trying to tiptoe around something. She said Emma had gone completely dark on social media. Deleted everything. Even her LinkedIn, which was already built on a pile of lies. Then she asked if I knew what happened with the job. I told her there was no job. Never had been. Emma had been living in a fantasy funded by my bank account and my silence. Aunt Linda didn't seem shocked, just disappointed that it took this long to come out. She said she always wondered why Emma never seemed to struggle, even when she wasn't working. Said it was like she was always floating just above the consequences the rest of us had to face. That floating was over now. The fallout came fast. My parents tried spinning it. My mom called a few relatives saying Emma was taking a break for her mental health. Said the online harassment had gotten too intense. But the only thing that had gone viral was the truth. And people weren't buying it anymore. Cousin Zoe texted me to say she confronted Emma privately. Asked her why she let me pay her rent. Emma's response was short. She said, "He didn't mind. That's all. Not, thank you. Not, I'm sorry. Just, he didn't mind." That line hit harder than the rest. Because I did mind. I minded when I came home from 10-hour days and saw that automatic transfer notification. I minded when my parents pretended that Emma was the golden child even as I picked up her slack month after month. I minded when I watched Lisa's face fall at that dinner table while my mom gave away my birthday. I just didn't say anything. Until now. But I guess when you never speak up, people assume you enjoy being stepped on. Emma didn't reach out, but my dad finally did. One evening, he sent a message with no greeting. It said, "You've made your point. But this is still your family." That was it. I didn't reply. I showed Lisa the message, and we sat in silence. There was nothing left to say. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't ashamed. He was just irritated that the golden machine had stopped working. The next morning, I got an email alert. My parents' internet bill had failed. It hit me right then. They were still trying to use my old card. The one I'd shut down. They hadn't updated anything because they assumed I'd keep paying. Because that's what I'd always done. For a second, I felt bad. Not for Emma. Not for my parents. But for the little version of me that still believed if I just did enough, they'd finally be proud. Then something unexpected happened. Lisa's parents called. Her mom said they wanted to talk, not about Emma, not about the drama. About us. They asked if we'd consider moving closer. Said they had a house they were planning to rent out, and if we wanted it, they'd give us first pick. A fresh start. We drove out that weekend to see it. Small white house. Big backyard. No ghosts in the walls. For the first time in a long time, I pictured a life that didn't orbit around guilt or obligation. A life where I got to choose who I took care of, and who I left behind. I said yes. And I didn't tell anyone. I packed quietly. No drama. No announcement. Just closure. By the end of the month, we were gone. New address. New number. Clean slate. And back at my parents' house, the walls were finally starting to creak. Emma was still jobless. The family wasn't speaking to her. My mom had taken out a small loan, the kind with a predatory interest rate. I only knew because Aunt Rosa warned me. But I didn't reach out. I was already gone. And I wasn't coming back. Moving into the new place felt surreal. It wasn't about the space. It was about the silence. Real silence. Not the kind I used to live with, the tense, guilt-laced quiet of people waiting for someone to fix their mess. This was calm. No one needed anything from me. No one expected anything. I didn't realize how tightly wound I'd been for years until I finally let go. Lisa flourished too. Her face was lighter. She was the one who unpacked the last box and said, "This is what starting over looks like." Weeks went by. I worked. Slept. Cooked. Read. I didn't check the group chat. Didn't answer any of the stray texts from relatives still hoping I'd reconsider, or be the bigger person. Then, out of nowhere, my mom showed up at my job. I didn't even know how she found the address. She was sitting in the lobby with a coffee cup, like we were just meeting for lunch. I didn't sit. Just stood there, waiting. She started in with small talk. Asked about Lisa. Said the weather was finally cooling down. Then she looked up at me and said, "We miss you." I said nothing. She went on about Emma, how things had been hard, how she was trying, how she'd started looking for jobs, even sent out a few resumes. I didn't ask where. I didn't ask why now. Then she pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. $6,000. The exact amount I'd spent on Emma's rent. She said it was from her and my dad. That they'd taken out a loan to make it right. I stared at it for a long time. Then I handed it back. She said, "You don't want it?" I said no. I told her that paying me back wasn't the point. This wasn't about money. It was about how easily they watched someone else's moment get stolen and chose to clap anyway. About how they let Emma believe she deserved everything I worked for. How they used me like a lifeline and treated me like a backup plan. Then I told her something I didn't expect to say. I said I forgave them. Not because they asked. Not because they earned it. But because I needed it. I didn't want to carry that weight anymore. I didn't need to hear them apologize to let go. I just needed to mean it when I said I'm done. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded. Said okay. And walked out. That was the last time I saw her. I kept the voicemail Emma left the next week. She said she got a job, part-time receptionist at a gym. She didn't ask for anything. Just wanted me to know. I didn't call back. I never once wished her harm. I don't even hate her. I just don't recognize her anymore. And that's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the only way to heal is to let people become strangers again. As for my parents, they stopped trying after that. The card was gone. The money stopped. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was just Jack. A guy who asked for a seat at his own birthday dinner and left when it was given to someone else. And when I look back, I don't feel angry anymore. Just free. The cycle ended the day I walked out. The peace began the day I didn't go back.